Okay, so since we are live, I'm recording. We have a hot microphone. I can hear everything you guys are saying, everything you guys are thinking. It's all recorded in the Zoom room. So if you want to, just something to be aware. Okay, the progress that we made on our Krita animations on Thursday. I've added a new frame on accident, so I'm gonna undo that. Should look something like this from what we were working with, right? Since we can't export all of this into a video out of Krita, what we'll do instead is, because each frame is an individual drawing, it's the moving picture portion, right? We're gonna export them all in a big block. It's gonna have one picture per frame, and then we're going to put it onto Photoshop and make it move just like it does in Krita when I hit play on here. So let's go back to the beginning. There we go. We got our squash and our stretch. Okay, perfect. So to do that, you need your Krita file open. If you want to follow along with me, you need your Krita animation file open. Whatever progress you made, or whatever progress you will make later today. What you do is go up here to File, and we're going to go to Render Animation, just like we tried to do the other day. But instead of rendering it as a video, where we don't have that MPEG, we're going to export it as an image sequence. So the first thing you need to do is you need to set a destination. So I'm going to get rid of mine. So yours looks probably something like this when you say image location. If you click on this folder icon, that's going to pop open your file explorer, and that's going to ask where do you want it to save. So I'm going to go into my Studio Graphic Arts OneDrive folder. And then I have a Krita folder right here with my, it would have Krita files or any other like of the raw file types saved in here. But because we're just looking for images at the moment to save, it's not going to actually see those. So they're still there. They're just not visible. I'm going to create a new folder and call it frames. You can put a specific name for the animation that the frames are related to. You can just call it frames, but what you can't call it is final version 10, version final, use this one final, actually use this one final.v2. Okay, way too much data. We're just gonna keep our naming specific, keep it actually relevant to what we're talking about. I'm gonna have mine be frames. So once you have that new folder established inside of your OneDrive file, or your OneDrive folder setup, you click on the folder you just created, so it has this gray bar or this blue bar if you're in light mode, and then click Select Folder. You'll see that path is going to appear inside of this image location box. If you go all the way back up, it goes to your C hard drive. We're just going to leave the base name of frame. We're going to leave start numbering at 0. But the thing you do want to change after you set your image location is the first and last frames. So my first frame is 0 and my last frame is 36. So I'm going to change this last frame number from 100 to 36. And then when I click on OK, it's going to think for a second. And if I go to that folder I just created, you can see I was testing this a little bit. Inside of frames, there are 36 PNGs, each one of my animation levels, excluding the onion skins. So it just has the animation. If I double click on frame 00 and then hold my arrow key, it's in essence what we're going to do in Photoshop, just not very quick, right? So we have all of our frames exported out in this animation here. What we need to do now is bring them into Photoshop as one big section. So this is going to suck if you try to bring each individual one of these frames into Photoshop by hand. So thankfully, there's a tool that you can work around with. So to find Photoshop, you got to click on your start menu, and it's probably nearby one of the A's because it's in Adobe right here. But we'll scroll down until you find Photoshop, or you can type Photoshop, and then it'll pop up right here. It's going to let that load in. See, mine appeared on the other side of my screen, so I'll move mine over here in just a second. All right, so Photoshop, we've heard of her. We're going to create a new file that we're going to load all these layers into, and from which is going to create our animation. Your Photoshop might want to open up and do the generative AI tutorial because we have one of the newer Photoshop versions and they haven't been used in a bit. So if that pops up, just go ahead and close it. We're going to create a new file anyway. So the blue new file button, since we made, you'll get a pop-up like this. Since we made our our animation at 1920 by 1080, you want your document size, you can set that in this kind of section over here. You want your document size to match your animation frame so that you don't have anything getting cut off at the end of it here. So I set mine to 1920 width by 1080 high because that's the resolution that I was animating at. You can also go to web and then choose web large, and that also works for what we're doing. But if you want to do it by hand, you can just put in the 1920 here, the 1080 here. We're going to leave the resolution at 72 so we don't have this massive file. And it's RGB color since we're sharing digitally. I'm going to change my name of my file real quick to be Krita. Oh, actually, sorry, let's do the Canvas naming scheme. We haven't done this for this class in a while. So it's first initial, last name, an underscore or a dash for a hyphen, underscore, period number. So you can just do P3 or the number 3. And then after that, this is the name of the project or the name of the file. For this case, this is Krita animation. So file naming typically does not love spaces. It works fine in the modern day of computing that we live in. But 2 reasons that you don't want to use spaces is sometimes it can break the file if you're using it on an older machine, or if you're sharing it quite a bit back and forth. It can degrade or it can lose some of its function. And also, I just think that it looks nicer. That's my personal part of it. But you can use underscores for spaces, or you can separate based on capitalization. So lowercase Krita, capital A animation is going to add a little bit of separation there. Doesn't matter that much. You just need to name your file with something close to the Canvas naming scheme. Once you've done that, once your settings look similar to mine, you can check mine real quick. You're going to click on the blue create button. So I'm going to mosey my way over to the blue create button and click on create. And that will present you with this Photoshop window where you can see your artboard, or mine has artboards enabled. Yours probably won't say that. But you can see our 1920 by 1080 background that we're going to load all of our frames into. So instead of clicking and dragging each one of these files into Photoshop as a new layer, we're going to take advantage of one of the built-in Photoshop scripts. So if you go up here to File, and then you go down to Scripts, we're looking for this Load Files into Stack script. So you can go to File and then Scripts, and then Load Files into Stack is what's going to bring all of our frames into one document so we can work with animating it. There is a little bit of setup when it comes to this. I've attached a link to a written tutorial if you ever need to reference it later, but you'll also have this video and this lecture to keep track of later on. So we're going to click on Load Files into Stack, and it's going to pop open a box, something like this, that says Load Layers. From the Load Layers pop-out, you click on Browse, and that's going to open up whichever, it'll probably open up your quick access like this on your File Explorer. But we want to find our way to wherever you saved all of your Krita frames, wherever you rendered all of your Krita frames out to. Okay, so for example, for me, that's in semester 1, 3rd period Studio Graphic Arts, Krita, and frames. So you can see I'm a little bit overly organized. I like to have a lot of subfolders. If you're in my web design class, you know that. But this is where I've saved all my frames from my most recent export. What you do now, when you're looking at all your frames and it says open in the top left corner, you can click on one frame and then on your keyboard, hold Control and A. Control A stands for select all, and that's going to check the box on all of these because we want every frame of our animation here. Once you have every frame selected, you can also click on the first one and then hold Shift and click on the last one. That's going to select a range. So if I click on my first one here, holding Shift, click on my 4th one here, that only selects the range from start to finish. But Control A is my favorite to quickly select all. Then we're going to click OK, and that's going to take a second. It's going to see, you can see all your frames here. I want to check and make sure that I have all 36 of mine. And then we're just going to click OK. So it's going to think for a second, and it's going to load every single one of those frames that I animated, every single one of those PNGs into a single document. This is going to take a second. So we'll just wait for it to go through. Did you render it as an image sequence? So go to and then go File, Render Animation, Export Image Sequence. Check this folder icon, and then Did you make a folder for frames? Or just okay. So click select folder. And then what's your last frame? Which one it looks like? Okay, so then change your last frame to one. And then click it. And that will give you all the things. Okay, so you can see mine's still loading. Did anybody else need help exporting their frames, or did it all work out okay? Okay, we're almost there. I think that's frame 2. We'll have frame 1 and then frame 0. All right, so now I have, if we look over at my layers panel in the bottom, when you're looking at your screen, the bottom right-hand side, we have, if I scroll down, you can see in the thumbnail, you can see a little bit of my animation happening here, but it's got all 36 frames loaded in so that I don't have to click and drag them individually. The next step that we're going to do, I'm going to put my captions up at the top of the, you can't really see them. Let's go here because we're not going to use much color. The next thing we need to do is open up the timeline panel in Photoshop. Or does anybody, is anybody's frame still rendering in to Photoshop? Because I can wait for that. I'll help you. Okay, so what you do next is go to View. Where is the hold on? Sorry, not View, Window. They are confusing. Window is relevant to the tools that are available in our screen window. And we're going to find our way down to T because they're alphabetical for Timeline. It's one of the last ones. When you click that Timeline button from the window drop down, it pops open. Mine's a little bit larger for demonstration purposes, but it pops open this video editing timeline that we're going to use to create our frame animation. So before we do that, you want to make sure that this says create frame animation. You can click this drop down so that there's a difference between video and frame. We want a frame animation. So you just check that, make sure it says create frame animation. Okay, we've got our timeline panel opened up. What you need to do next is we need to select all these layers so that Photoshop knows that we want to use each one of these layers as an individual frame in our animation. To do that quickly, you go to select and then select, which one was it? Select all layers, not all, but all layers. It's the fourth option right here. Select all layers. You can see down here in my layers panel, which I'm actually gonna make larger. No, I'm just gonna leave it in the default. You can see that they're all kind of light gray now because I've selected all of them. Now what I'm gonna do, clicking on this, I'm gonna click create frame animation. And what's gonna happen is it's gonna take a single frame like this and make my timeline tiny. It's not what I'm looking for because I want all my frames animated. So to fix that, there's a little menu icon right here, the 3 lines. We're going to click on that. You want to make sure that this box that says create new layer for each frame is checked. So do that one more time. You click on this 3 lines right here in your timeline. After you've hit create frame animation, you click here. And then you want to make sure that both of these boxes are checked, especially this first one, especially create new layer for each frame. Once that is all true, once you've done all those steps, you can click on this button right here that says make frames from layers. And when you do that, it's going to take all of your layers and put them as an individual frame on your timeline here. You can see I have all 36 of my frames. It says 37 because I think there's just one extra in there somewhere. But when I hit play, you can hit play there's a play button right here towards the bottom of your playback controls, or you can hit spacebar. Spacebar will begin playing your frame animation. You may be noticing mine's going the wrong way. It is not imported in the correct order, even though I set it up to import based off my frames. If we go to I lost my frame. There we go. It does start at 0 and goes to 36, so it should be in the correct order. To fix that, what we're going to do, I always forget where it goes. Here we go. So you're going to click on that same hamburger icon, the same menu icon that checked both of these boxes. And you're looking for this reverse frames option right underneath tween. That's betweening. That's the idea of combining that squash and stretch together. But we're looking for reverse frames. When I press this button that says reverse frames from the little hamburger menu above the timeline, reverse frames, that's going to put them in the correct order. And now I have my GIF. It's a little bit slower than I initially animated it, but that's okay. It is still it's running in the correct direction now. Because these are set to no delay currently. Actually, they might be set to, here, let me try that real quick. What happens when I set it to no delay? Okay, nope, no delay is 0 seconds. So that's as fast as it's gonna be for now, which is fine because it's animating. All right, now that we've got our animation, we need to render it out as a GIF or as an MP4. And to do that, we're gonna go into, where is it? We're gonna export it and then save for web. Okay. Save for web is gonna pop out yet another pop-out menu. Photoshop loves its pop-outs, right? We're getting pretty messy on my screen here, but we're gonna save this as a GIF. Right now it's 22 seconds. Okay, something's wrong because mine's at 22 seconds, so that's a little much. I'm gonna click preview real quick and see what's happening. Hold on. This is not behaving the way I need it to. Okay, so I don't want it to loop forever. That's probably why it's so large. So you can see down in this animation section, in order to make yours GIF, there's going to be a little drop down right underneath preset on the save for web menu. Make sure that says GIF and not JPEG, PNG, nor WebMP. We want GIF right at the top. I say GIF as well. I don't know how you guys feel about that. Image size looks good. Percent looks good. We want to change this looping option to be once, and that should make it not 22 seconds. I guess it doesn't really. Let's go original. Let's just mess around a little bit and see what we're working with here. We'll go, so there's a couple options here. We'll go original resolution. It's going to be 7.91 megabytes. All right. And then when you configured all yours, I'll be able to help you guys one-on-one because I know this is a lot of info and it's pretty technical. So don't stress because I will help you. We're going to click save, and then it's going to ask us where you want us to save this web-based sort of situation. To get to your OneDrive, you go to libraries, not libraries. This PC, of course, wait, where is that? Desktop, perchance. There we go. So desktop has your OneDrive ISAQUA access. If you double click on that, that will let you into whatever file structure you have established in your OneDrive. So we go into 2324, semester 1, SGA, and then I'm going to go into Krita, and then I'm just going to save it here. Before you click save, you got to give it a name. You can take off the extension because it will automatically add it back in. So we want images only. We don't need the HTML. We don't need all that fun stuff. My file name is going to be squash stretch, and then the letters PS for Photoshop. And then when I click save, it's going to think for a second. Okay. Now when I go to wherever I saved that file, like Krita, for example, we should have a squash stretch ps.gif. When I double click on it, we have animated all of our frames from Krita. You can set yours to loop. I did not. Mine's going to have an ending point. Totally up to you. If we click on squash stretch GIF, it'll run through, and then you'll have a completed animation. Okay, so I'm going to quickly wrap up the Zoom room so that you guys have this resource accessible later. But for the rest of today, I want you guys to practice some more animating and some exporting as well. So we can actually have a physical file, maybe not physical, but a file to share around. Okay? So I'll help you guys with your specific questions if you have them. Other than that, you can keep using Krita to animate, and then we'll put it together in Photoshop to make a GIF. Thank you guys for listening.